The boat arrived on the Renosterkop, and the first thing that I did was to check what it would look like in scale behind one of my crawlers. The next thing that I checked was to see how it would look in scale with the WWE figurines that I use as characters in my stories. It is a little bit on the big side, but in scale it works well and I'm happy. Now I can proceed. Acquiring this boat was an emotional thing for me. I have been looking for an option to recreate the skiboat that I owned in the 80s. And after many months of searching for a decent hull, I found this one. I contracted a guy in February to build me one. And he accepted the contract and he took my money and then he just disappeared. So about 4 weeks ago, I got this one offered to me. It was third hand, and the guy that I bought it from, he cut the holes in the transom and in the hull because he decided that he's going to fit jet drives. So I received the boat 3 weeks ago. And for the first week I just walked around and looked at it and thought about it. And then I started working on it. It was a major mission to get the jets in. That was really a challenge. The first thing that I did was to seal the holes and put the boat on the water with the jets and the motor inside. It was important that I can see where the water line was. Getting a good image of where the water line was important so that I can know how deep I can mount those jets. The holes were cut initially too big, so I had to compensate a lot for that. And especially the holes in the transom, that was way too big. I think the problem that the guy had was he could not line up the jet with the transom because these jets are actually manufactured and designed to be used on the Lexan body boats. So the gap between the jet and the transom clamp, that is too small to work on a fiberglass boat, because the fiberglass boat at the transom is between 3 and 4 millimeters thick, which is way too big for the existing fastening system that is on the jet. And another problem there was that the transom is not at 90 degrees with the hull bottom. So the transom is slanted, and that also created a problem. So in the end, I opted to make extension tubes for the jets. Today is a big moment. I've been working on this boat for a week. Installing the jet drives was a challenge. The fiberglass boat with a slanted transom does not make it easy. The jet drives are designed for these thin Lexan hulls, and it will not work on the fiberglass. So I had to put in extension tubes to bring the jets through the hull. Today I'm going to do a big step, and that is to glue in these extension tubes. They must go in here with epoxy, like that. and I'm quite tense about it, because a mistake here will be a big story to repair. So let's see how it goes. Alright, and they're in. Epoxy down and glue down. Now there's no return. It is done. By making these extension tubes, I overcame the problem of the transom thickness, and it made it possible for me to line the jets up properly inside the hull. And then I just screw the nozzles onto the outside of the extension tubes. In theory, this shouldn't make any performance difference, because all it does is just lengthens the jet stream. After almost giving up on getting these jets in and convert the boat rather to inboard motors, on a Saturday I started it around 7 o'clock in the morning, and by 4 o'clock the jets were mounted. And I think it sits well. The design of the hull, being a catamaran, makes it difficult because there's not much space on the sides of the motor and the jets. So mounting the steering servos and the reverse bucket servos is going to be another challenge. But so far, with what's going on now, I'm happy. Yesterday I did a water test with the boat, and the first test was a disaster. It was leaking like a sieve. The problem is that the main design of the way how the jet is mounted to the hull is an extremely flimsy design, and the grill that fits on the outside of the hull, that is supposed to pull the jet down and make it watertight on the hull. That thing is a soft plastic that is very pliable, and it came with 4 teeny weeny little screws on each corner, which in this world can never tighten that jet down properly. So I had to make a modification there. From this image you can see that I replaced those 4 tiny little screws with M3 stainless steel fasteners, and you can see that I have now on the long sides there is 4 screws. Those in the center specifically was needed to get the thing watertight because it was warping there. And then right at the back I added that center screw there because it was leaking there as well. After I've installed these fasteners and refitted the jets, the leaking was at an end. It was over. Of course, I would have liked to have that edge a little bit smoother on the hull there, but it is a small place, and I sanded as well and good as possible, and I just reached the point where I decided to stop, because sanding more, I ran the risk of undoing the watertightness again. So I will live with that. And it's not, for me, it's not a major problem, because it's the bottom of the boat's in the water. Nobody will really see it. Another issue that I had is that the space underneath the deck is there's not much space there. I will finally install only the ESCs under the deck. The rest of the stuff will have to be above the deck. So I manufactured this little lid to close the deck, and I built the 2 boxes on the side to contain the batteries. So the batteries will go in that box there, each side one battery for every motor, and This is a fighting chair that I've done, that's a cosmetic thing. And then for the radio receiver will be in that little box with this lid on it, and that will have the radio receiver in it, and it also plays then a role in part of the aesthetics of the deck layout. This is the fighting chair that I have made for this space here, because ultimately this is going to be a big game fishing boat. Now my issue is to mount the servos. I've mounted the one servo for the steering for a test, just to make sure that it works. It will sit like that, and again the servo is above is not under the deck, it's above the deck. The servo wires will run under and into the receiver box. I need to mount two small servos on each side here that will maintain and facilitate the reverse buckets. So this is how far I am with the boat at this point, and it's looking good. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to see this thing on the water.